Dragon Ball Super's world is expansive. In Dragon Ball Z, we were introduced to other planets and races, which made Dragon Ball's world even larger, but now we're exposed to other universes, each with their own governing deities not too different from the Kai. But in keeping with the concepts of yin and yang, the Kai must have a counterforce in the universe to keep things in balance. That's where Dragon Ball Super introduced the strongest beings in every universe, the Destroyer Gods. The first we ever meet was Beerus, but he's far from the only one. Considering each of the 12 universes has a destroyer, each one meant to be the strongest in their universe, we then must ask the question, who among the destroyers is the strongest of all time? Well, we've witnessed one of their battles previously in both manga and anime, but the victor was never reached as Zeno grew bored with it. So for now, let's take a look at their power and see who would win in an all-out fight. Welcome to the Amagi. In today's video, we're going to rank all 12 destroyers in Dragon Ball Super. Before we begin, only 25% of our viewers are subscribed, so if you're a fan of the video, please like and double check if you are subscribed. And with that out of the way, let's get into the video. Number 12, Iwan. It's ironic that Iwan is first on the list, and also happens to be the destroyer for Universe 1. All things said, Iwan is a strong character within the series, and his universe is known for having one of the highest mortal ratings across the universe. A quick thing to talk about, while it sounds like a bad thing for a destroyer to let their universe have high mortal levels, it's actually a good thing. While it says high mortal levels, I don't believe it means the quantity of those living there so much as it means the quality. The point of the Kai and Destroyer are simple. One creates life and the other destroys it. They're actually supposed to coordinate with each other to root out which worlds will become productive and which ones won't, which is why the Kai have the ability to go into the future with their time rings. In doing so, they can tell if a world will ever develop enough on its own to achieve a high enough quality. If not, the destroyer is informed and he proceeds to destroy that race so it can be replaced, which is why Beerus' catchphrase happens to be, "Before creation comes destruction." This is how a universe's mortal rating advances. Universe 7 is among the universes with the lowest mortal rating because Beerus the Destroyer and the Kai have a dysfunctional relationship, with Beerus being more threatening to the Kai than courteous. It is revealed that it was Beerus who sealed away the Elder Kai of his universe, and this happened during the time that the Elder Kai was the Supreme Kai, meaning the two couldn't get along, and because Beerus couldn't destroy the old Kai, he sealed him away instead, prompting the election of a new individual of which Beerus apparently never really got along with either, the Grand Supreme Kai. It was likely the Elder Kai's sealing that prompted the Grand Supreme Kai to take on multiple apprentices, which would likely be due to the bad blood between Beerus and the Kai. And so, despite the fact that Iwan ranks so low on our list, power-wise, being bodied by the likes of Arak, Liquor, and Quitella, he ranks as one of the better destroyers in the series because he actually understands what his position is supposed to be and executes it, whereas Beerus lazes around. Number 11. Arak is another destroyer of which painfully little is known. Like, for real, Toriyama has set us up for some prime storytelling because every character to show up in the Tournament of Power, 80 in all, not to mention the 24 deities that watch from the stands, we have prime examples of open plotlines. Often, Jiren is criticized for being bland and having no backstory, and I personally don't criticize this because I recognize that Jiren was designed to be a mysterious character, and by the end of the tournament, though we know a bit more about him, we're still only on the surface. Jiren isn't a bland, backgroundless character like most think, he's a promise that there is a story coming. We know we haven't seen the last of Jiren, so I personally think Jiren's lacking backstory was a smart move on the part of Toriyama, so as to give us something to look forward to. Despite that, it doesn't change that we know very little about Arak, besides the fact that he was stronger than most others in his universe and apparently did his job very well according to the ratings given to the mortals that we had already discussed before. Number 10, Liquor. Liquor is actually one of my favorite destroyers. As a fox, he possesses 9 tails, which is a reference to the kitsune of Japanese mythology. According to those stories, for every 100 years a kitsune lived, it could gain a new tail if it survived a cataclysm that could kill the fox. After 900 years had passed, it would have become a 9-tailed fox. But further than this, if the fox continued to train and grow to become enlightened, it might become a celestial fox, which happened after 1,000 years had passed, and the fox achieved enlightenment, which would come in many forms, such as staring into the moon and getting yin energy, or get this, by training with a priest to learn their techniques. In doing this, the fox could ascend to become a celestial fox and be canonized in the heavenly court as a sort of demigod that served under a larger god, usually Inari. But I guess for this story, it was Zeno. Apparently, despite everything and his low ranking in power, Liquor was still considered strong enough to actually have his universe pass a certain threshold of mortal quality, that he and his universe were excused from erasure by Zeno, and thus did not need to partake in the Tournament of Power. Now, this is not to say that his universe wasn't in any danger. It was, of course, just not as much as the previous universes. And he better be thankful that Android 17 desired to revive the universes over getting his boat, because if he had wished for the cruise he so desired, everyone would have died, including Liquor and his universe. Fun fact, as he fights, you can actually watch him grow more tails depending on the attack he uses. When he uses a full power attack, such as his tail energy cannon, he grows out all 9, hinting that his race's power and transformations are regulated by their tails. Number 9. Helles. Not exactly weak, we know she at least comes close to Liquor as she actually shot him with her bow, though you must realize that he was quick enough to block it and at such close range too, so their powers must be considered very similar to each other. Helles is the only god of destruction that's a woman. She is fairly humanoid, and her design is based off of Cleopatra, an ancient Egyptian queen, and the infamous lover of Marcus Antonius, who himself was a general and politician in the Roman Empire during the years 44 BC to 30 BC. As the story goes, Mark Antony and Cleopatra fell in love, which ended with the eventual self-oof of both parties involved after Antony and Egypt were both surrounded by the forces of Agrippa and Octavian. Antony believed that Cleopatra had already offed herself, and so he fell on his own sword only to realize that she hadn't. A real Romeo and Juliet moment. His men informed him of her survival and brought him to where he died in her arms. After her capture by Octavian, she refused to be a prize and allegedly used a snake to go the way of Juliet. What does this have to do with Helles? I don't know. It explains her design and the fact that she values love in her universe, which is why she prizes Ribrianne and her group of magical girls over everything else, hedging the bets of all the lives in her universe on love. And just like Cleopatra, it led to her death. Now, if you ask me if she's strong, as I said before, she struck Liquor with her bow, which to the ancient Egyptians was a symbol of might and their empire, but all in all, even at such a close range, she still couldn't kill him and ended up defeated herself, just like Liquor, so I place her above him but not by much, and only because she managed to wound him pretty badly. Number 8. Jin is the destroyer god of Universe 12, and he is indeed a fishman, probably specializing in fishman karate. Don't mind me, I'm just trying hard and failing to make a One Piece reference. Anyway, like most of the gods on the list behind him, save Helles, his universe was excluded from the Tournament of Power because he did his job too well. The mortal level is high, and it's even known that his universe has become so advanced that time travel by mortals was developed there. Of course, such a thing is supposed to be an offense to the gods, so why is he flaunting it all around? Not to mention that Bulma also developed time travel all on her own. We've got a whole saga on it, and she exists in one of the more underdeveloped universes, but whatever. Jin is shown to be prideful and very bored. As said, his universe is so good he doesn't have to destroy anything, which makes him a bit sad, causing him to look more forward to the Tournament of Power than one probably should. This suggests to me that the reason why his universe is so good isn't because he's a good destroyer per se, but more likely because his Supreme Kai is actually very competent. And if you just stop for a moment to study Agu, you'll find that he has an ambition to make his universe even better than it is, which suggests that Jin is merely riding on his coattails. While still significantly stronger than Helles, he's still on the lower tiers of power because all in all, he's numbered among the many destroyer gods that Beerus could have killed with a single blast, and even he admits as much. Number 7. Sidra. Alright, now we're getting into the heavy hitters. Sidra is above Jin for many reasons, chief of which being that Jin and the ones below him are only alive right now because Sidra caught that blast that Beerus threw at them, and saved most everyone with his energy barrier. Now, all in all, why Sidra even became a destroyer god is unknown. He's not actually shown to be overly cruel. He always overthinks everything and has to rely upon calculations to gain near 100% accuracy on whether or not a civilization can be rehabilitated. He doesn't trust his gut, of which he has much. But don't think I'm fat shaming because he could still kick everyone's ass in his universe and is still, in a way, one of the better destroyer gods, even if he doesn't pay attention to his instincts. He has a pacifistic nature, believing that force should never be over-applied, which dictates that, for better or worse, he has an insane level of control and acts somewhat justly, which likely explains why he so easily defended the other destroyers from Beerus' attack. He's just an all-around good dude. Yeah, I know, he attempted to have Goku and Frieza assassinated, but you need to remember that at this time, Goku was to blame for the tournament in the first place, and both Goku and Frieza were among the heaviest hitters in Team 7. Wait, Hold up, did I just accidentally discover a hidden Naruto reference in Dragon Ball? He apparently has great control over his energy as well, as he was shown being able to grant it to others without erasing them. All in all though, his strength is still subpar, as not only Goku, but Frieza as well could resist his Hawkeye, but could control and make use of it too, with Beerus waving it away as if it were nothing more than a bothersome fly. Still one of my favorite destroyers though. Number 6, Mule. Mule is a unique destroyer god, as he doesn't actually fight on his own, but instead utilizes a large ancient mech known as Moscow. The robot has one large eye in the middle of its head and reminds me an insane amount of Lord Lude from GT, who himself was described as a god of destruction. Despite this, Mule is the true destroyer, being the one controlling Moscow. Now, whether Mule is truly as strong as he seems, or simply has the benefit of his mech, I don't know. But one thing I do know, when Beerus was in the zone and capable of using Ultra Instinct, Moscow was the first one to actually touch Beerus, being capable of grabbing a hold on him. All things said, I never really cared too much for Mule and his robot, except for at the very end when he popped out of his robot as he was being erased. I couldn't help but shout and laugh because I didn't expect it. I guess Yoda was right, size matters not, and I would have enjoyed seeing him as an actual small destroyer the whole time. Would have been more badass if you ask me. Number 5, Rumshi. Rumshi is himself a rather lazy elephant, not too unlike Beerus, though unlike Beerus, who likes destroying things, Rumshi dislikes it, considering it too much work. This truly makes me wonder why in the world he's even a destroyer in the first place. Seems like he dreads going to work in the mornings. Well, there was at least one point in time when he didn't go into work, and that was thanks to Zamasu in future Trunks' timeline. Honestly, Rumshi should be thanking Beerus. When Gowasu was in danger from Zamasu's treason, Beerus, who had been tracking a rogue Kai who had in an alternate timeline stolen Goku's body, arrived at the Supreme Kai's world in Universe 10. Despite everything, though he did do things out of self-interest, it should be known that Beerus had a healthy respect for his fellow deities, as he went out of his way using Whis to rewind time to stop Zamasu from killing Gowasu in the first place, instead of merely killing him after the fact. Normally, a destroyer is not allowed to destroy anything outside of their jurisdiction, but something tells me that Rumshi won't be reporting this. After all, if Beerus hadn't done it, Rumshi could never report anything ever again. But I digress. Rumshi, design-wise, is actually pretty cool, and as for his power, he's no slouch, despite how lazy he can be. His roar is strong enough to stun all the other destroyer gods, making him a true force to be reckoned with. All in all, I like Rumshi, and he has been shown to be funny. Not to mention he has Kusu, the most adorable angel of them all. She reminds me of my little sister so much. Shout out to my sis. Number 4, Champa. Ah yes, Champa. Our boy Champa is probably what I would be if I were a destroyer god. Childish, loves to eat, a little chubby, but pretty damn strong all things considered. Well, maybe I overestimate myself. I'm at least the first 3 things. Champa is the twin brother of Beerus and possesses a rivalry with him so strong that it was what spurred on the Tournament of Destroyers, the prelude to Zeno's idea. That being said, it's not entirely Goku's fault that the Tournament of Power happened. I mean, yeah, he is a big reason why, but we can't turn a blind eye to Beerus and Champa, whose tournament was what interested Zeno in the first place. Still, I can't forget that scene where Whis and Vados so viciously turned on Beerus and Champa just to tattle on everything they do wrong and how they're bad destroyers. Honestly, that brings up the legitimate question. Why do the angels seem to want to get rid of their destroyer gods so much? One of them even smiles as their universe is erased. I hope they explain that at some point in the future. Either way, Champa is no slouch, and despite all the big gulps and lack of exercise, he's still considered roughly equal to Beerus in the power sense, as he and Beerus have fought on many occasions, and it ends up generally a pretty even match, to the point that they almost destroy both universes 6 and 7 at the same time. That being said, it's my professional opinion that Beerus is letting Champa win quite a bit. If you watch their final battle in the Destroyer exhibitions in the manga, you'll understand why I say so. Number 3, Beerus. If you know any destroyers in Dragon Ball Super, you likely know this one, as he's the only one to make it on the big screen 3 times. I'm not counting Goku's flashbacks and Broly, as those are basically just still images that don't do anything. Beerus' power has always been something most Dragon Ball fans debate over, as it seems that almost every time we turn around he's being retconned, called stronger, etc, etc. But despite that, when put up against his other peers, Beerus can be scaled, and I would not say he's the absolute strongest destroyer god there is, as even Whis himself has stated that there are at least 2 more destroyer gods above him, with one being Quitella, who was capable of beating Beerus in an arm wrestling contest. And before you make mention of it only pertaining to physical strength and not ki, you should know that ki and physical strength are linked, which is how Quitella would have won, as his arms are even skinnier than Beerus's. And as for Belmod, he was stated by Whis himself to be stronger than Beerus when he mentioned how strong Jiren is, stating that Jiren is stronger than Belmod. This would mean that currently Goku is stronger than Beerus, and technically there's nothing to disprove that he isn't. So as it stands, yes, Beerus, take the 3rd ranking. Better luck next time. Number 2, Quitella. Quitella is strong in the physical sense and has a bit of a rivalry with Beerus that plays on the idea of their species, one being a cat and the other a mouse. Their whole Tom and Jerry dynamic is why I enjoy almost any time that these two are in a room together. Quitella is a bit of a dirty player, following further on his species by being a low-down dirty rat, who isn't afraid to sabotage other universes, and even drags Sidra into the plot as well, simply because he knows how stressed out the Destroyer is, and knew that he would need someone to take the fall for him should the plot ever be discovered. Of all the Destroyers, Quitella is the most evil and dirty, but despite his nature and his stature, his power puts him as just above Beerus, though Beerus protests this. The only proof that Quitella is stronger than Beerus is due to a certain arm wrestling contest that the two of them had, in which Quitella managed to overpower Beerus. That being said, Quitella isn't much more active than Beerus or Champa, both preferring to be lazy, sleep, eat, and play video games. Honestly, I see a strange theme going on here. The likes of Ewan are hard workers and end up with the highest mortal level, yet somehow they're super weak compared to the more lazy compatriots. But then again, as I guess Quitella shows us in his usage of Sidra during the days prior to the Tournament of Power, sometimes nice guys finish last. Number 1, Belmod. Belmod is the it monster if it stopped hiding in the sewers and instead came straight up to you to ask if you would like to be a destroyer god. Belmod was once a pride trooper, much like Jiren and his current candidate, Toppo. As a pride trooper, Belmod valued justice and the concept of good triumphing over evil, a trait that continued into his work as a destroyer. Belmod was a good friend of Gichin, the master of Jiren, but eventually Gichin's death at the hand of a powerful demon tainted his ideas of teamwork. As if such a concept was so strong, why did it not save him from his own death? In the end, Belmod was approached to become a destroyer god, but was on the fence. That was until Belmod and Jiren had it out with each other, where Jiren absolutely curb-stomped Belmod for daring call his master's ideals dumb. All in all, it wasn't like Jiren could not agree, as he too lost faith in bonds and teamwork, preferring to work alone or as a trump card, insisting instead to focus his power through meditation to its max while his comrades defended him, only to show up and solo the entire tournament like a sweeper Pokemon in the Elite Four. But the likely reason why Jiren handed Belmod his ass was probably not because Belmod disagreed with this concept of teamwork, but more that he had disrespected his masters by calling his teachings, however flawed they may have been, dumb. But the honest truth is that Belmod was likely just as hurt by Gichin's death as Jiren was, and these two were grieving in two very different ways, with Belmod blaming the death on his ideals, while Jiren instead insisted that it was because he simply was not strong enough, which is what set them on their very different paths away from teamwork. In the end though, Belmod was a good destroyer god who accepted the position with humility and honor, going so far as to realize that his tenure would not last forever, eventually seeking out a replacement approximately 267,974 years after his acceptance of the position, which most destroyers held for millions of years on end. Power-wise, Belmod had the strength to entrap all other destroyer gods for a short time until Liquor broke the barrier, there's hope for you yet my boy, and sent a Hawkeye attack up at Belmod, which he easily pushed away. That being said, Belmod faked being hurt by it to give him a reason to pull back out of the fight. Belmod was two things that is a rare sight to behold within Dragon Ball. He was both strong and smart, knowing how to save his strength and where to apply it, letting the other destroyers tire themselves out so he could strike and defeat them all at the end. That's one of the reasons why he is the strongest destroyer god. Not only because he's physically the strongest, but also because he knows that if he plays around too much, the other destroyers, even if they are weaker, might surprise him and gang up on him and eat his lunch like a school bully. And that was the list of the strongest destroyers in all of Dragon Ball. Did you like it? Let us... No, you thought I was done with that? No. I still have one more ranking. Number 0, Beerus. Alright, I know I already numbered him. Give me a second. Number 0, Ultra Instinct Beerus. There we go, that's a little better. Now, Ultra Instinct Beerus was not originally added to the list because this list is based on the strength of a destroyer and not technically their skill. And since Beerus' usage of Ultra Instinct is not in the form but in the base mentality, this makes this form weaker than his destroyer state, as it's basically like Ultra Ego, and we saw the difference between Goku's Ultra and Vegeta's Ultra in the Granola arc. Due to this, Beerus doesn't technically grow any stronger. He actually grows weaker. This form makes Beerus weaker than any other god, but allows him to remain just strong enough to kick all asses at once. Beerus uses Ultra Instinct when he wants to fight smart, not hard. And in an arena surrounded by people who are your equal or better, you gotta fight smart. That's why he obscured their vision and then psyched them out with Champa as a distraction. Beerus was indeed winning this fight when he was in Ultra Instinct, but he had yet to completely master it as Whis had, so it wasn't an infallible technique. But one-on-one, in a solo battle against any destroyer on the list, Ultra Instinct Beerus would win. Not because he's stronger than them, but because he has far more skill. He can hit them and they can't hit him. Simple. So long as he whittles down the defenses faster than he loses his own, he will come out on top, regardless of who's stronger. It's sort of like that same idea Vegeta had on Namek, where he wanted to gain immortality to overthrow Frieza knowing he was weaker, but knowing so long as he didn't lose, he would eventually win. Same concept. So while Beerus may not be the strongest destroyer of them all, he is by far the one who would win, 9 times out of 10. So what did you think about this video? For real this time? Did you like it? Did you agree with it? Let me know down in the comments below. Honestly, I love talking about Dragon Ball, and anytime I can power scale, I go for it. After all, it's one of the things that got me started in anime. I can't tell you how many times I got into fights after Battle of the Gods came out, but anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Be sure to click the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Don't forget to ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos as they release, and until next time, peace.